Today is Hoshana Rabbah, a very significant day on the Jewish calendar. We are on the eve of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, and we'll be shortly reading Vizos HaBracha, concluding another cycle of the reading of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. The opening pasuk in Vizos HaBracha states, Vizos HaBracha asher beirach Moshe ish Elohim. This is the bracha, the blessing that Moshe Rabbeinu delivered to the Jewish people just prior to his death. Now, when we were in grade school, I'm sure we remember that our teachers taught us one never should begin a sentence with a conjunction of and. So we say, I went to the store and I bought some milk. And is a conjunction in the middle of a sentence. One should not begin a sentence with and. Well, I don't know if that is a sacrosanct law in grammar from a time immemorial, but it is worth noting that our Sedra begins Vizos HaBracha, and this is the bracha, indicating that this is not the beginning of a thought, but we are in mid-thought. So why does the Torah begin this pasuk, Vizos HaBracha, and this is the bracha? So I'd like to share with you three beautiful thoughts to explain this anomaly in the pasuk. The first is by Rav Zalman Sorotzkin, the Oznaim LaTorah, who states that Moshe Rabbeinu, at the end of his life, had every reason to begrudge Bnei Yisrael. The fact of the matter is that his life's journey, his yearning, his desire, his goal was ultimately to get into Eretz Yisrael. And because of Bnei Yisrael, he was so triggered and made perhaps a rash or bad decision. And Moshe Rabbeinu, as we know, hit the rock rather than speaking to the rock. And as a consequence, Moshe Rabbeinu was not allowed to enter the land of Israel. Now, a lesser person might have said to himself, had I just left the Jewish people alone, had I just let Hashem start over with another nation, as God had suggested earlier on, had I just turned away from Klal Yisrael and let Klal Yisrael bear the brunt of whatever consequences they were due as by dint of their bad actions, I might have been saved this terrible consequence myself, and would be entering the land of Israel today. Moshe Rabbeinu had every reason to begrudge Klal Yisrael. And in his last moments, in his last breath, rather than blessing Bnei Yisrael, maybe wishing ill upon Bnei Yisrael, or at the very least, just being stone silent. Says the Torah, this is the gadlus of Moshe Rabbeinu, that in his last moments, Vizos HaBracha, you know what Vizos is? It is a conjunction that connects us to the previous pasuk. The previous pasuk at the end of Hazinu says, V'shama lo savo, you Moshe Rabbeinu will not enter the land of Israel. The land of Israel, ani nosein lebnei Israel, I give it to the Jewish people. Vizos HaBracha, and despite the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu would not be entering to the land of Israel, and the Jewish people, Bnei Israel as a whole, would be. And Moshe Rabbeinu had every right to begrudge them and be upset and hold resentments against the people. Vizos HaBracha. And now you should know, this is the bracha that Moshe Rabbeinu gave Klal Yisrael. What an extraordinary model Moshe Rabbeinu is for us. How many of us hold on to grudges and resentments over days and months and years? Some people, even in their dying moments, cannot give up their resentments. Moshe Rabbeinu shows us a different way, a better way. In addition, Rabbi Abraham J. Twersky suggests two very beautiful thoughts that are one a slight nuance on the other. Says Rabbi Twersky that when Moshe Rabbeinu blessed Bnei Yisrael, he blessed them Vizos HaBracha, and this is a bracha. What is the conjunction, the and? Well, it means that there was a bracha just prior to this as well. Where's the bracha just prior to this? If one looks previously in the Psukim, one will find Moshe Rabbeinu is actually rebuking Klal Yisrael. And Hazinu, there's quite a bit of rebuke and quite a bit of musar. Says Rabbi Twersky, sometimes we believe that offering rebuke and critique of another or receiving critique or rebuke from another is a bad thing. It doesn't feel good. It can be harsh. It can cause a lot of angst and pain and internal suffering. Who wants it? Who needs it? But says the Torah, vizos habracha. There are two types of brachas. There's the bracha which sounds like a bracha. May you do well. May you succeed. May you grow. May you have good health. And then there is the bracha that doesn't sound like a bracha. When a person who is a good friend will not allow me to wallow in errant behavior. Rather, a good friend will say, look at what you're doing. Don't you want to do better? And will offer a mirror, a critique, a rebuke, musar, that I can better myself. Moshe Rabbeinu gave both. Moshe Rabbeinu gave the bracha, which sounds like a bracha, and Moshe Rabbeinu gave the rebuke, which is also a bracha. We should appreciate that that's what Moshe Rabbeinu did for us, and we should also appreciate that when it comes from friends and neighbors around us. Rather than rejecting rebuke out of hand, learn something from it, see it as a bracha, and thus be able to grow and become a better human being. Finally, Rabbi Twersky suggests, V'zos habracha is extraordinary because it is a message in what brachas and tsaros actually are in life. And this is a little bit of a hard message to swallow or to share or to accept. And I'd like to share it with you this way. There is a minhag amongst some Hasidim in this period of time, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, up to Hoshana Rabbah, in various times, beginning in Elul, we say we bless one another, a ksiva v'chasima tova. One should be written and inscribed. It should be a good writing and a good inscription, meaning one should be blessed with a good, happy life for this coming year. However, some have the minhag to say, a guta ksiva v'chasima tova. You should have a good ksiva v'chasima tova, and that's redundant. Because ksiva v'chasima tova means you should be written, you should have a good writing and inscription. So what does it mean? You should have a good writing and inscription. And the answer, I believe, is that everything that Hashem does for us is by definition good. Sometimes we understand it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes it feels like pleasure, and sometimes the good feels like pain. But whatever it is, we have an emunah and bitachon that somehow there is a good that exudes from this challenging moment. The bracha to say, the minhag to say, a good ksiva v'chasima tova, that we wish each other a good writing and inscription, means that we're blessing one another, that even though from our finite perspectives, some of God's blessings seem harsh, and some of God's blessings we understand. The blessing that we offer one another is that all of the good that Hashem does to us should be given in a way that in our finite perspectives we perceive and experience as good and pleasant. Everything that Hashem does is good, but sometimes the good can seem harsh, and sometimes the good can be very challenging. And we bless one another that the good that Hashem bestows upon us should be done in a way that we experience it, even from our finite perspectives, as good. So this is what the Torah tells us about Moshe Rabbeinu. Vizos habaracha. And this is the bracha. That the bracha itself should be a bracha. That we should experience the bracha as a bracha. That the bracha should be experienced as joyful. That the bracha should be experienced as happy. That the good that Hashem bestows upon us should be experienced in a joyful content, hopeful, happy way. And this is Moshe Rabbeinu's in his last moments, offers a powerful lesson. The notion that on the one hand, a rebuke can be a bracha. Similarly, Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't hold on to grudges and the importance of letting go of our resentments. And finally, that everything that Hashem does is good. The challenge for us, however, is sometimes to be able to accept the good even when it feels quite challenging. And we bless one another. And Moshe Rabbeinu's bracha to Klal Yisrael was similarly that all of Hashem's good should be provided in a way that we experience it as good, not just from Hashem's perspective, but from ours as well. In these final moments, I wish everyone a good Yantif. And this new year, as we come to a close with a reading of the Sefer Torah, with a reading of Zos HaBracha, that the new year, beginning with Bereshis, and almost in the same breath, is one in which we absorb all the messages of the Zos HaBracha. Good Yantif to all.